Hi everybody, this is Dr. Nigro with another chemistry calculations video. This one's going to be focusing on density. All right, hopefully we remember that density is a physical property of matter, and it's a measurement of the amount of matter that we find within a certain amount of space in three-dimensional space. So if we have a lot of matter within a space, we would say that is a very dense matter. If we have a little bit of matter in this particular amount of space, that would be a less dense. All right, to calculate that density, we need those two values, the mass and the volume. So the formula is density equals the mass of the matter divided by the space that it takes up, or the volume. All right, now we can use this formula to find any of our three variables, mass, density, or volume. All right, some people like these formula triangles. And for density, it would look like this. And the way a formula triangle works is you look at which particular variable you're trying to solve for. For example, if we want density, right, it's going to be equal to the mass divided by the volume, as we see up here. All right, if instead, let's say we wanted to solve for the mass, it would be the density times the volume. So mass equals the density times volume. And then if instead we wanted to look at the volume, sorry, this is getting a little messy, it'd be equal to the mass divided by the volume. So those would be the three formulas that we could pull out. Now, you don't have to use a formula triangle. You can just rearrange the original formula, density equals mass over volume, using algebra. Either way works. The other thing I want to point out about these problems is you have to be very careful with your units. All right, density sometimes is given in the problem, and it's going to have a compound unit with a mass unit over a volume unit, and we just need to make sure that those units match what's given in the problem, or what we come out with from our calculation matches what is asked for. All right, so let's look at this problem. Number one, it says calculate the density in grams per milliliter of a piece of metal with a volume of 60 milliliters and a mass of 350 grams. All right, so we have a mass value, we have a volume value, and we're asked for density. So I like to keep track of what I've been given by having a little table. And if I look, density is my unknown, and we are given a particular unit that we need to solve for. So I usually list that next to that question mark. The volumes given in the problem is 60 milliliters, and then we have a mass of 350 grams. All right, so with this information, we can go right into our formula for density, which is mass over volume, and we plug in what we've been given. So 350 grams over 60 milliliters. We get our calculator out, we divide 350 by 60, and we should get 5.83. Now our unit here will be a gram divided by a milliliter because of how our calculation worked out. And if we look, that is what we were asked for at the beginning of the problem. All right, so we're all set. All right, now we're going to slide down to number two. All right, number two says, what is the volume of a sample of carbon tetrachloride with a mass of 75 grams and a density of 160 grams per milliliter? Oh, I'm sorry, 1.6. So we have a density value and we have a mass value, and this time we're asked for volume. All right, so again, I set up what I've been given. I have 1.60 grams per milliliter for my density. This object has a mass of 75 grams, and our unknown here is volume. Now, there's no indication of what that unit needs to be, so we can make it whatever the calculation gives us. We don't have to do any conversions. All right, so we know that density is mass over volume, but this time we're looking for volume. So I'm going to rearrange my formula to solve for V. So it's going to be mass over density. So the volume is going to be equal to our mass of 75 grams divided by our density of 1.60 grams per milliliter. And once we do our math, we find that the volume of this particular sample is 46.88. Now the grams are going to cancel as part of this calculation, which is going to leave us with units of milliliters. All right, and again, because the problem didn't specify a unit, that is A-OK. All right, last problem. What is the mass of a sample of glycerin with a volume of 320 milliliters and a density of 1.26 grams per milliliter? So again, we have a volume and a density value, and we're asked to find mass. So we list out what we have. Our density is 1.26 grams per milliliter. We have an unknown mass, that's our unknown, and then we have a volume of 320 milliliters. All right, so we use our formula. Density is mass over volume, but this time we're looking for mass, and mass is going to be equal to density times the volume. So we plug in our values, 1.26 grams per milliliter for the density, 320 milliliters for the volume. We get out our calculators, plug everything in, and we find that our sample has a mass of 403.2 grams. All right, now if we look at our units, the milliliters are going to cancel. We're going to be left with the gram. And since the problem doesn't specify a particular unit, we can leave it in grams. Okay, so those are 3 very simple problems dealing with density. The second video will have a couple that are a little trickier.